Hello everybody, welcome back. I'm the Strategy Professor, and today we're going to be starting a brand new campaign using the new, fresh, updated Steel Faith Overhaul mod, and this is the Grimhammer 2 mod is what it's called. You can find this under the Steam Workshop. Just look under SFO mod, and this is what just came out for the new Lizardmen versus Skaven DLC. They changed a bunch of things around on the patch, and special thanks to Hudson for sponsoring this campaign. We're going to be doing Chaos. And they just did a bunch of changes to Chaos, and they've had some other changes on Chaos for a while, and it's been over a year since I've done a Chaos campaign, I think, so this should be interesting, should be pretty fun. If you would like to sponsor a campaign yourself, just email me at thestrategyprofessor@gmail.com. Let me know what you think. I'll do at least 15 episodes for $30, so I think it's pretty reasonable, about 15 hours or so for 30 bucks. Now, Hudson donated a little bit more. I believe Hudson donated about 80 bucks, and he said he wanted to see all the way to completion. So, full campaign where we get every victory objective done, and that's what we're going to go for. Okay. Be sure to check out the rest of the campaigns as well on the channel. We have over 40 legendary campaigns. We're constantly adding more. Usually I'm doing 3 or 4 at the same time, uploading multiple episodes every day. So, I create more content than just about anybody out there, so be sure to check it out. Let's go ahead and get in here. So there are several changes. We'll talk about some when we get in there, but we're going to go with Archaon. Now, I had talked with Hudson, and Hudson wants me to try to do a bunch of monsters if I can at some point. It's harder to do that with the Steel Faith mod, which I'll talk about when we get in there, but I will try to get some monsters as much as I can for later on in the game. So if I was doing a vanilla campaign, I would do Kolic, because you can funnel all of your growth into rushing tier 4 as fast as possible, and you could actually get Dragon Ogres probably before turn 30. Like, you can get them pretty quickly in the base campaign, but it makes it much harder to do that on Steel Faith, which I'll show you when we get in there. So, you really can't use his bonuses that much early on. You do get some Dragon Ogres early, which is solid. But like, as far as the upkeep on the Dragon Ogres and the bonuses and stuff, we really can't leverage that too well for a large part of the early game. And the early game is really, I think, the hardest part for most Chaos campaigns. So we want to have a bit more power early. Sigvald is... I think they gave him some new skills that make him a little more useful, but by and large, he's pretty worthless. He used to be, if not the worst, one of the worst Legendary Lords in the game. He has some pretty decent stuff. You get a discount on Marauders, and you get some extra Horde growth. So he's got some decent stuff now. He's not as bad as he used to be, but just doesn't quite have enough punch. One of the main reasons that we want to go Archaon is a change they made with Steel Faith also is they bumped the Wizards up to tier 4 instead of tier 3. And so you're not going to be able to get magic for a really long time. There might be some kind of event that would give you a Wizard. I don't know. I've only run through the first like 10 turns of this just to kind of test stuff out. But if you don't have that, you're not going to have any magic, and you really, really need magic early on in the game to even up the score, because you are going to be outnumbered big time and outgunned in a lot of these fights. So we're going to be rolling with Archaon, and of course we will get Kolic, we will get Sigvald as the campaign unfolds. You actually get Kolic by getting the Dragon Ogre building. So it's like right when you can get Dragon Ogres, that's when you can get Kolic. And so I think that's pretty cool that he shows up right on time. You know, when you can get some Dragon Ogres, so. Anyways, sticking with Archaon here, he can get an Exalted Hero early on. He has physical resist for Chaos Knights, extra 2 corruption for everybody, which is handy. Has negative 50 diplomacy with everybody. Most factions will hate you anyways. You can't trade with anybody, so there's not really a point. I guess you can get military alliances with some evil factions, like maybe Skaven, maybe some Norska, but you're just probably going to kill everybody, realistically. You do get 5% ward save on everybody, which is great. So that's 5% both physical resist and magic resist, which is handy. Income from raising settlements on all characters, so that's really good. Extra money there. Upkeep on Chaos Knights. Now those are tier 4 units, so probably not going to matter too much early, but later in the game it's nice. And you do get some chosen with great weapons, which are fantastic against other infantry, particularly in sieges, which are going to be a major challenge early on. Okay, so let's go ahead and get in here. And Legendary, of course, you know, everything's cranked up to the highest difficulty. This is really, really hard. I think, like, with this mod, as far as I can tell early on, this looks very difficult, like, way harder than the base vanilla campaign. I mean, Steel Faith in general is harder, but this Chaos is much harder for a couple of reasons. The big one is money. Money is a big, big issue here. So the reason that money is a big deal is they've lowered the amount of money that you get off of raising. You can no longer sack settlements. In the base game for a long time, they changed this, but you could sack settlements, and there are some, if you look at older runs on Chaos by people, there were so many cheese mechanics that you could do to get around the difficulty of the campaign. A lot of people would sit there, like Legend of Total War, and some other people would sit there and just multi-sack the same town over and over and over again to power level your lord early on, and to just kind of boost up to the higher tech levels. You can't do that anymore. You have to burn it whenever there's a town.
You are the ever chosen.
So that makes it a lot harder to power level your lord cheaply and easily early on. It also takes away a source of income. Now you do get some cool bonuses for burning, but it makes the money situation a lot harder. And if we go in and look at this, they revamped a lot of this tree as well. So in the base campaign, and I'm just going to talk through here for the first like 10 or 15 minutes just to let you know all the new mechanics and what's going on, and then it's just going to be straight fighting from there on out in this campaign. You know, there's virtually no diplomacy you can do, or you're almost never going to be building buildings. You're just straight up running up and just fighting people constantly. So if you like a campaign where you fight a lot, almost every episode is going to be all fights after I introduce you to some beginning concepts here. So how Horde factions work in general, I guess I should start there, is you carry around all the buildings with you. You can't occupy any towns. With this mod, they did actually add where you can get some towns in very specific places. So in Midland, way over here, we can get like a Chaos Fortress is what they're calling it. And then in Carcassonne, way down here, we can get a Chaos Fortress. There's a couple more locations, but they're very, very spread out, and I don't really know what they do. I assume they give you some kind of, maybe some income, maybe some special units. I think you can build something called like cultists there, but I'm not sure. I haven't practiced. I haven't gotten that far in the campaign yet, so we'll figure that out together. But by and large, you can't build buildings by occupying towns. You build the buildings with you, and you carry them around with you. So you always have them on your main character. However, if you ever lose a fight, then your buildings will be damaged. They'll be cracked. You might even get knocked down a tier level, and if your lord dies, you lose all your buildings. It's catastrophic. You cannot lose fights ever, which puts a lot of pressure on you, and that's part of what makes it challenging. But you carry around all these buildings with you, and there's a mechanic called Horde growth. This is different from normal growth because it's static. It's always 20 Horde growth, gives you 1 total growth. No matter what. In the base campaign, it's like varying amounts, right? It starts at 150, then goes to 300, then 600, then 1200. It might even be higher than that. I think they changed it, but that's what it used to be. But with this, it's always 20. And so getting any kind of stuff that gives you bonus to growth, like an additional +5 that we'll get in a little bit, is a really big deal. So you're not really pressured into spending your growth right away. You can stock up on it if you need to. Because what you have to do, pretty much, if you attack, then you can't build any of your buildings, and you can't hire any units. You have to go into a special encamp stance, which means you pretty much have to take a turn off in order to build buildings and hire units, and also to replenish. So there's always this tension between wanting to be as aggressive as possible and, you know, just keep the aggro on the enemy before they hire more troops or before they get reinforcements, and then having to stop and chill for a turn or two and hire some fresh units, replenish, build some buildings, and so on and so forth. That's kind of how the Horde works. And so each one of these buildings requires growth. So not only to level up your main chain, but also each one of these. And then every time you buy a separate chain, it increases the amount of growth that it takes. So if I buy this one for 4 growth eventually, and I try to buy this one, I believe it'll go up to 6. So it really makes it difficult to diversify your army. So you cannot get it'll take a really long time, I guess, to get all of the buildings, to get all of the different kinds of units. So in the base game, you're highly encouraged to specialize in units, because each one of your buildings would give you a discount on that type of unit. So they kept that with the Marauders, so it's minus 20% Marauders. But they used to have that with everything. Like, you used to be able to get like 50% off of, you know, Forsaken, 50% off of Chaos Spawn whenever you upgraded the building. You know, like 40% off of Chosen. And then this building also gave you a discount on your units. And that was to balance out the fact that you can't occupy towns. You can't get any money buildings. You get all of your money from winning battles and raising things. And so you were always like in the red. You were always owing money. But all of your stuff was at a really deep discount as well from specializing in these buildings. That made it very difficult to hand off different kinds of units too. So if I had one lord specialize, if I had Kolick specialize in Dragon Ogres, then I had Archaon specialize in Chaos Knights, then if we traded units with another faction, you would be heavily penalized for that because you wouldn't get the discount. So we wouldn't get the 50% off of Dragon Ogres. You wouldn't get the 50% off of Knights if the corresponding lord didn't have those buildings. And so that was one thing that kind of sucked, is you couldn't really use most of the roster. You just had to pick a couple of power units you wanted to rush with normal chaos. So they've tried to fix that some with this mod, in the sense that you no longer get this deep discount on units, and now you can trade them back and forth, and you're not really losing as much. But the downside is, I think it makes your money much, much tighter. Now, we'll have to see down the line. They tried to combat this by giving every single building some kind of income instead of a discount, so you are kind of encouraged to try to go wide to get different buildings, because like this gives you 150, this gives you 300, this gives you 150, 200, 400. So like all of your buildings do give you money. So if you kind of max them all out, then eventually, I just noticed that gives you 25% rating. That's pretty sweet. Then you can get decent income eventually. Now this gives you minus 30 campaign movement range for 1,000 gold per turn, but it takes a while to get to that. And a lot of your buildings are pretty expensive early on. Like a lot of these are like 5,000. That one's 7,200 for the troll building. Upgrading this is 7,200. That's 9,000, so it's pretty expensive early on to get this. But a lot of the units in their building chains are pretty similar to where they were. They switched some of this around. The Chaos Spawn and Feral Manticore used to be tier 4, and these wizards used to be tier 3, but now the wizards are tier 4. I'm trying to think of what else they had I think everything else is basically in the same spot. They moved Aspiring Champions up to tier 5 and made them tougher. And they, because those used to only be tier 3, I believe. Chosen, I think normal Chosen were tier 4 also. And then it was the Great Weapons and Halberds were tier 5. So they shuffled around a couple of things. They added in a new unit, Chaos Dragons, with the mod, which is really cool. It's a big, tough unit, like a lot of dragons out there, like what you would expect. Not anything that outstanding about them. Very expensive. Not quite as good as, like, black dragons, I don't think, or, the top-end dragons from the elves, but still pretty good nevertheless. Very similar. And they made some of these monstrous units, like Dragon Ogres, smaller entity sizes, so there's 6 of these. These Chaos Trolls are pretty legit. I don't know if we're going to get them eventually, but they added on a couple of things here. They have Stupidity now, so if they go under a certain amount of hit points, 50 hit points, they get extra leadership and melee attack. And they just crush melee units. They get plus 70 or 25 versus infantry, so they'd have 75 melee attack with 100 armor and, like, really strong regeneration. It's even stronger than normal regeneration, and you get 25% extra physical resist. So that's kind of cool that they're trying to make the trolls worthwhile, the armored trolls, but they're in a thing all by themselves. They don't build in anything, so we probably won't get them. But anyways, cool overview here. Okay, so the next mechanic here that we'll talk about, and then we'll move on. We'll get into a fight here in just a second, is this... You can pledge each lord to a different shrine of a different god. So you've got Khorne, and these are and that allows you to hire these specialty units. So Khorne Berserkers, and all of them are about 500 gold each. So they're pretty expensive, or whatever, Dark Favor, whatever this is called. I'll probably just end up calling it gold. And they're super aggressive. So they have 80 weapon strength, 25 against infantry. So they would start off at 70 melee attack. They're frenzied, which takes it up to 80 melee attack. Then they can activate this for 30 seconds. They get an extra 25 melee attack, 25% weapon damage. So that would take them up to, 105 melee attack or something. And they have 100 armor. They're unbreakable. They cause terror. I mean, they're just ridiculously strong. They're probably the strongest infantry versus infantry unit in the game, or if they're not, they're very close. They're really, really strong. And then all of the chaos have this chaotic crusade, so if you're above 50% health, you get this buff on you that refreshes every 60 seconds or whatever, and it gives you extra weapon damage and some extra vigor. So as long as you stay above 50% health, your vigor is really good. And it gives a buff to your army and a debuff to your army as well. So you get 10% extra weapon strength, 4 extra melee, but you lose 5 melee defense on everybody. So that's Khorne. Then we have Nurgle. Nurgle gives vigor loss reduction to your army, which is really good. Vigor, basically, if you don't know what that stat does, it affects your armor, and I believe your melee attack, your melee defense, your leadership, and a few your movement speed, your accuracy. It affects almost all of your stats. It doesn't affect, I don't believe with Steel Faith, Vigor doesn't affect those stats as much as some other, like the vanilla. I think I've seen a unit that was pretty tired that was only like -4 leadership. But either way, you don't want to be tired. You start losing a lot of stats. So the Vigor loss reduction is good. And then this gives you melee defense, and your movement speed is down 10%. Now, movement speed really doesn't matter that much. Your units are already pretty slow, and you're just going to be hanging out in combat a lot of the time anyways and just outlasting the enemy. So that's a pretty good old buff. And the Sons of the Last Plague are Scythe Infantry, so they're kind of like Wraiths. They have Area of Effect attacks, which is nice. They also have Regeneration, which is handy. Really high armor, 120 armor, but they only have 35 melee attack, 45 defense. It's still pretty good, but not nearly as good as Khorne. And then 70 weapon damage. So still pretty strong units, and their little thing that they can do does damage, knocks people back, and takes away some of their vigor. And then you get lethal poison, which lowers their damage by 10%, and you deal this kind of stacking poison to people. So pretty good defensive unit. The fact that it has so much armor and pretty good melee defense and regeneration means it would take forever to kill these things. So that's pretty good if you want a decent front line. Slaanesh gives you charge bonus and movement speed at the cost of armor. It's pretty bad. I think in general, armor is very important. And your units are so slow anyways, a lot of them aren't going to like be charge cycling. Like this could be pretty good if you run a lot of Chaos Knights or something eventually, or like Chariots, but for most of your infantry, it's not a good trade-off. The units themselves are pretty good, though. 70 armor, so a little bit less on the armor side, but they do a lot of damage. Most of it is armor-piercing damage. Khorne did non-armor piercing damage for the most part. They still have some armor piercing, but not a lot. It's only 20 of their 60 damage, or 20 of their 80 to start with. They have this debuff of 8 leadership, but they have pretty low melee attack and defense. They do have perfect vigor, though, so they never get tired, which is pretty cool. Then they give this debuff to everyone around them for 30 units, which is basically lower their damage and lower their melee attack. So it really lowers the amount of damage that people can do overall. And then finally you have Zinch, and these guys are like little support troops. They can spawn Chaos once. So you get some Chaos spawn. They have this healing that you can do every 90 seconds, which is pretty good. Replenishment, magic resist. And they have this thing which does AoE damage to people. Now, I don't know how much damage, but it's decent with 5 melee defense. They're like free casters that don't charge you winds of magic, and they have just, you know, a summon spell, a debuff that does some damage, and a healing. So it's pretty good. It's pretty good overall. But they're terrible in combat. They only have 30 armor and then 35-30 on the melee attack and melee defense. And yeah, low charge bonus. So they are not very good in combat at all. Like they can do some stuff, but you don't really want to be using them in combat that much. And then you get some extra winds of magic and magical attacks. So that one's not really that great. We'll probably get that on some Lord just so we can hire some of these eventually. And just pass them around, but overall not that great. When you get to tier 4, you basically can double down on the bonus if you want, so more weapon strength, you know, more melee attack at the cost of more defense. This one gives you, these are 18,000 to upgrade this as well, so it's super expensive. This one, you know, more melee defense at the cost of speed. It also gives you horde growth for every single lord, and so this is be like great end game when you have like 4 lords or something. Where they're all getting a bunch of horde growth. That could be handy. campaign movement range for everybody on the map, which is handy, but minus 30 armor is pretty rough. So that's a pretty cool little mechanic here. And then we have the technologies. I'll tell you what, let me go ahead and just get into a fight, and then we'll talk about the text, because I don't want to talk for too long, more than like, you know, we've already talked for almost 20 minutes in a row here, so. The main thing that we're going to try to do is get this Chaos Divided and Devotion to the Plague Lord ASAP. I think we're going to need probably at least 2 more Marauders. I want to start, because this takes 15 turns to get the Plague Lord, which we'll talk about in a second. This one, Horde Recruit Rank Replenishment. This will eventually give us a discount on Marauders. So if we have, what, 1, 2, 4 Marauders would be 560. A 10% discount only be 56 per turn. We might actually just chill on that, not get that right away. Because I really want that Nurgle thing as fast as possible. And this upgrade doesn't matter as much. It's okay. We'll get it here in a little bit. This trial pit's pretty good. But I think we'll just... could roll over here and raid him.
The gods direct me! Yes.
Okay, so we're going to raid, and then we're just going to try to win this fight with as few casualties as possible. So we're going to skip that. Diplomacy-wise, there's nothing we can really do here. Everyone kind of hates us right now. These guys did like us, but they don't like us trespassing. They don't mind that we're raiding them, but they don't like our trespassing. Okay.
Sirius eye guides me.
Yeah, it feels weird not hiring and not getting a tech, but I think that's what we want to do. We want to save some money. So basically, what else? New mechanics we could talk about here. You have to have growth in order to hire additional wards as well, and each ward that you hire costs additional growth. And you have to have a certain level of technology in order to get a new army. So every new army that you want, you have to have another level of tech. So there's kind of your traditional techs, which give you like some bonuses to, you know, standard units, Marauders early on, and then later on you get some Chaos units and all that, like some Chaos Warriors and all that as you go down. So standard stuff that's in the vanilla game. But they also added in this whole new tree where you can pledge yourself to a specific god, or you can do Chaos Undivided, which I'll show you here in just a second. But there's a cap system here. It should have prompted us. Okay. So we get this gift for 25 turns. So this is kind of cool. This does help out early. I have tried the movement speed one, just thinking I could just run around and kill everybody, and that is really nice. But I'm here to tell you that this replenishment rate is probably what you need most, because you're going to be fighting a lot, and you're not going to like be able to replace some of these units that are really clutch, like the Abomination things. I forgot the Chaos Spawn and the Chosen. You can't replace those for a really long time, and so you need those to be topped off. Also, Archaon himself needs to be topped off every fight. So I think I'm going to have to go with this Zinch, and there's not a good way to get replenishment in like your skill tree or anything early on. Horde growth is pretty good, but your limiting factor is money, more so than anything else. And we can get extra Horde growth anyways through raising some of the towns, which we'll show you here in a little bit. The post-battle loot is very nice. We're going to get a decent chunk of our loot from raising settlements, though. So probably not Slanesh. The campaign movement range is great, but you're going to have to stop and replenish anyway several times, most likely. So I'm going to try out going for this replenishment rate early on. I just feel like that's going to be huge. So I would recommend either going Corn or Zinch early on. depending on how much replenishment you think you're going to need. I'm going to like be ultra aggressive here, and we're going to try to really go at Kislev hard early on. So I think we need this replenishment. Okay. So we're going to go with that. And then there are a few different stances. So you can do channeling stance, which lowers your miscast chance, gives you 25 extra winds of magic, which is really nice, and then lowers your melee attack by 3. I think that's a pretty good bargain most of the time. I didn't realize we could do research rate 25%. That's pretty legit, actually. I might do that because this thing takes 15 turns, but I want it like really quickly. And if when we raise one of the towns, you can get a bonus that gives you 25%, and then it looks like we might be able to get 25% right there, so that we could potentially get the Nurgle upgrade in like 7 turns, although I don't know if it's worth waiting and doing nothing for 7 turns, so maybe not. It doesn't require any, if you're just moving forward, you can do that instead of raiding, though. It doesn't require you to stop. This requires 25% to adopt, so that's interesting. And you can get your full movement in and raid on the same turn, so that's pretty handy. Okay, we're gonna go ahead and fight this with channeling. Yeah, declare. Is there anyone else that's fighting them that could give us money? Red Eye, but we don't know. Oh, here we are.
Me, bloody chaos gits. What do you want?
Yes. Yes. Just a little bit of money, man. I just need a little bit.
Don't think so.
One of the recent patches in vanilla did make the AI a lot stingier with their money early on.
Yeah, fine.
Nice. All right, well, we got 300. And we're gonna fight this because I don't want to take a lot of casualties. Well, we are gonna be able to replenish. Actually, we're gonna have a couple more fights here in a second. So I think because we have that extra 20% replenishment, I think I am just going to auto-resolve it. So the dogs usually get pretty hurt, yeah. But I think we'll be able to replenish out of it. Okay, so we would have gotten an extra 25%, so we would have had an extra 200 gold. We got that, but I think replenishment is much stronger. Okay, so you can awaken tribes. Now, awakened tribes are nice. That gives us a lot of replenishment if we do that, which is handy. But they build armies, and you can have them help you take out some other people eventually. They can go and occupy things that you burn. So it's nice to awaken tribes whenever you can, I think. Sometimes they will end up fighting each other, but if you raise it, you get 10 turns of a bonus. Post-battle loot 20% is the main thing right now. If we have those chosen of corn or whatever, we get a discount on them and melee attack. This basically gives 5 horde growth. That other 25 growth, I thought that was horde growth initially. That's for your towns. If you do get some of those chaos fortresses, which once again, that's very rare to get those. There's only a couple of places even remotely close to us right now where we could get one. Carcassone's not even really that close. It's really just Middenheim. Campaign movement range, 20%, and plus 100 experience per turn. That one's really, really handy. And then this one is 25% research rate and minus construction. So I think we'll get that on our next town because we want to get to Nurgle fast. But right now we're just going to awaken this tribe. Okay, sweet. Got an extra 10% discount on the research. Okay, so skill-wise, we want to do, you get 2 points for your first 5 levels with the Steel Faith Overhaul mod, and the AI gets that too, and whenever the AI hires a lord, they hire them at rank 7, so they're automatically going to have, you know, like, whatever, 12 skill points whenever they hire a fresh lord. So that actually ends up making it a lot harder. So early on you, it's like, oh, sweet, I get 2 points. It's like, oh, wait, but every time they hire a new lord, they're always going to have, you know, upgraded units. So it actually ends up being a lot tougher on you because you can't snowball as hard because the enemy's always going to have a lord that's at least halfway relevant instead of just like a level 1 that can't do anything. So we want to go Fireball and then Burning Head. This is super crucial. Like, this spell right here is insanely powerful. Like, Archaon in some of these fights is going to get like 400 or 500 kills off of this spell. It's really strong in vanilla. They've nerfed it a little bit in this game in the sense that it costs more magic than it does in vanilla, but still really, really strong. And it's a wind spell, so you can direct exactly where it's going. It's awesome when you just line up that infantry and just throw the fire right through it. That can be super powerful. Now, they did add something in the game where every time you get a new spell, it increases the upkeep for all spellcasters by 5%, which, I don't know. I guess it's fine. Kindle Flame is also pretty good. Every time you cast a fire spell, it gives 25% weakness to fire to all enemies map-wide, and because he has fiery attacks and your Chosen have fiery attacks naturally. And you can do something like this Flaming Sword and just naturally give your units magical attacks and fiery attacks if you want to. Although I think you should just spend most of your magic on Burning Head and Cascading Fire Cloak, which we have naturally anyways, which gives a lot of extra melee defense and armor-piercing damage. So this is great to throw on like those Chosen if you put them up on the front line. They do a lot of armor-piercing damage. So that's pretty solid. But yeah, you definitely want this first. And then Hearts of Iron is also really good. Vigor Loss Reduction Large for units is super handy. And then you want to get to Root Marcher and Tribes of Chaos after that really quickly, because this is going to give you 5 Horde growth to allow you to actually upgrade your units, and it gives you a discount on Marauders. And then you need to get to Lightning Strike. So 3 points in that, 1 point in something random, probably Serve or Die, and Unholy Resilience, and Lightning Strike is clutch, so that you can isolate those death stacks of humans that are going to be coming at us. And then eventually you can go in the red tree, and we'll talk about those as we get there. Just upgrade the relevant units that you're going to be building a lot. Then he has pretty cool stuff here. Reduction on Chaos Warriors, all that kind of stuff. Chosen, Knights. I'm really surprised it didn't ask us about caps. Maybe it does that on the next turn. But another thing that makes this campaign harder, if you choose to do it, which I'm going to do, is there's a cap system so that you can only have so many of certain kinds of units. So this one, +1 Chaos Warrior unit, 1 per base. So that means we can only have 2 Chaos Warriors, period, among all of our armies. I'm only going to do faction caps and not army caps for this one, because I think it's going to be hard enough without the army caps. I do the army caps in the other campaign. It basically just means you can only have so many of certain types of units in your army, period, regardless of how many buildings you have. But considering that it's already so difficult to get a diversity of units anyways because of all the growth, I'm just not going to do the army caps on this one. But I will do the faction-wide caps to add a little bit of extra difficulty in there. So you can't just spam all Chaos Warriors early, which in the base campaign, that is a strategy that you could do. You could spam all Chaos Warriors. Now, Forsaken are not capped. It doesn't look like they're capped. No. So we can get as many Forsaken and Chaos Spawns as we want, which is great. But the Chaos Warriors are capped. And then Chosen are capped. Dragons, Giants, all the big stuff are capped. The Dragon Ogres, almost everything is capped, actually, except for these Chariots, Cannons, and the Chosen. Are these capped? Yeah, Chaos Knights are capped too. Okay. So now we're going to run over here. We could just raid them anyways. I mean, they do like us a lot, but we might as well just raid. Because whatever. They probably won't mind that much. So, how much do they mind that we're raiding them? They don't care. Okay. Now, they don't really have much of an army right now.
To be honest, I'd rather be raiding, but you have my time.
Now. And everyone else hates us or is currently at war with us. Okay, so going to do that, and now we're going to... So the choice here, and I said we'll do a real fight, I promise, here against Kislev on the next one. Each one of these... So this is the standard tech tree, which is pretty similar to what it was in the baseline game, where it's increasingly more money. Then you go down here and you get some stuff like extra, you know, money from raising, battle loot, marauder stuff, and so on and so forth. We'll go over that more as we go, but that's pretty standard with the vanilla game. You can pay an extra 10,000 and get one more chosen knight and aspiring champion capacity. So you're paying more for that, but it does increase the upkeep cost on all of those units to do that. And every time you get another tech up here, this also increases all of your upkeep by 5% on all of your units. So I don't know why they're making everything cost so much more, but the money is going to be a huge deal in this campaign. It's very, very difficult to manage the money. And then all of these techs, for some reason, are also 10,000 dark favor or gold or whatever. So in order to hire those corn, the baseline building just allows you to recruit them, but you have no capacity for them yet. You have to pay 10,000 to get your first one here to recruit this. And then I don't think you have to pay anything for these, but these presumably take some amount of time to go down. They might be 15 turns each. I'm not sure. I know it's 15 turns to get devotion to the Plague Lord, but I don't know. But every time you level up one of these, you can get one more chosen, and then it kind of buffs them up a little bit. And it's the same thing with the other gods. It gives you something like melee defense and physical resilient or physical resist here, one extra charge on their thing, and it's a little more powerful. Extra recruitment, upkeep reduction, and then this gives them a special bonus aura ability that affects other units around them. So pretty cool, but super expensive. So you can get this no matter what you decide to do. It buffs up those certain types of units. And then you have a choice, either Chaos Undivided or Chaos Divided. If you do Chaos Undivided, this allows you to spawn different units in battles. You can spawn, I think, one Chaos spawn and one Forsaken Regiments of Renown, I believe. I haven't tried it out. I don't know how many charges it has, but I assume it's probably just once per battle for each one of those. And then you can get all four of these. So you can get Chosen, get these special Chaos Gods Marks ability, so they... You know, it basically powers up your Chosen in combat. And you have different things. It's several different buffs and debuffs that you can get to increase them thematically based on, you know, Nurgle, Khorne, Slaanesh, whatever, in combat. So like Khorne, for example, is going to sacrifice your defense to give them more offense, that type of thing. Then you have Vigor Loss Reduction or Leadership and Chaos Corruption, which is all right. Campaign Line of Sight, 100%, pretty good. Enemy Hero Action, minus 10%. And then minus 10 upkeep on all units and one extra Horde capacity. But it's at the cost of -5 melee attack for all of those types of units. It's like -5 melee attack and leadership and melee defense for all of your specialty units. So I think Chaos Undivided sucks. I could be wrong about that. The only thing that's really appealing is you get to buff up all of your Chosen with those marks. So that could be really powerful. But if you do Chaos Divided, you get extra 5 melee attack, defense, and leadership for all of your specialty units. And then you get a path that you can choose. You can only choose one of these gods to devote yourself to. So this one is minus 10% for Berserkers as far as upkeep costs, and then all units, not just Berserkers, but every single unit in all of your armies gets these buffs. This one increases their attack, charge, vigor, and magic resistance, but you don't have as much magic regeneration. So I don't know the exact numbers on all these again, but presumably pretty strong, right? And then each one of these, I believe, also would probably take about 15 turns. 100% from raiding, and then every other specialty god type of unit would be an additional 5% upkeep on them. So you can still get these other ones. You can still get the, you know, Zinch ones and the Slaanesh other units, but it's going to cost you more if you do that. You can't get their special perk, but you can get the units. So 100% rating. This one gives hero extra exalted bonuses. And then melee attack for Lords and minus 25% for Lords and Heroes. So pretty good. Now this one looks really, really strong. So this is why I want to go Nurgle. You get everybody gets lethal poison and health regeneration. So everyone in all of your armies gets regen, and they get lethal poison, which does pretty solid damage over time. So like in a 5-minute fight, I did the math on it, I don't remember. It's like thousands of extra damage and thousands of extra healing. The longer that fights go, and a lot of these fights are going to go pretty long. So that's really strong. Now you do lose movement speed, which is whatever. It doesn't matter. Like I explained before, a lot of your times you're just going to be sitting there just hacking away at people with your heavily armored units. But you also lose some attack speed. I believe it says cost of attack. So I don't know how much melee attack you're losing, but I still think it's worth it for the regeneration. It's just ridiculously strong. And then you get Lord of Flies, so extra reinforcement range, whatever, not that great. This right here, extra 10 Horde growth for everybody, that can actually be quite good. And then -6 wound recovery time is not that great. I mean, I guess it's okay, like if a unit dies, but I don't know. Like I said, you lose all your buildings if you ever lose a Lord to the Horde. So with other, legendary Lords, it might be okay. This would be pretty solid, but seems pretty disastrous with Chaos. So not that great overall. I just pretty much want it for the devotion of the Plague Lord. This one gives you extra damage, speed, and missile resistance at the cost of armor. That one's kind of whatever. Campaign movement range 25%. That's really nice for everybody. And unit experience plus 250 per turn. That's actually really good. And then Zinch is gives all of your units leadership, magical attacks, and it lowers your miscast chance and gives you a lot of and cost of an extra mana pool at the cost of lower damage overall. So probably the weakest one overall, I think. You get extra Winds of Magic, which is solid. All spells cost 1 less. That's pretty good. And then minus 25% to spells. So pretty decent offering of things here, but we're going to go for Chaos Divided, and we're going to try to get this Plague Lord buff ASAP. Okay, so here's the thing, though, about, like, regeneration. Anytime a unit has really heavy defense and really heavy, like, melee defense and armor, regeneration is that much stronger because it increases their effective health. Because every time you heal, it takes them, if you heal back 100 health, it's not just 100 damage they have to do to kill that, right? If you have, like, 50 melee defense, I guess it depends on how much melee attack, but if you have a lot of armor, if you have like 100 armor, which a lot of these Chaos units are going to have, something like 100 armor, it's going to reduce the damage you take by roughly about 50% unless they have armor piercing, and then that has to go through an additional, the heavy melee attack that they have. So maybe they have, I don't know, a 30% chance to hit you, and you're reducing the damage by 50% when they do hit you. So, if someone would be doing 100 damage to you, then that damage is going to be reduced to about 15. So it's going to go down to, they're only going to hit 30% of the time, which would be 30 damage. 30 times out of 100, it's going to hit you, and then it's going to be reduced by an additional 50% off of that. So it's just going to take forever to hack through you with Nurgle. And also, some of the buffs that your units get, like this right here, if you stay above 50% health, you get extra weapon damage and extra vigor that just constantly replenishes as long as you stay healthy. So I think it's a really, really powerful buff, potentially, if it's working the way that I think it's going to work. So that's what we're going to work towards. We're pretty much broke after that, but I think it's that powerful. That's what I would rush before you rush anything else. So that's what we're going to try out. Okay, we looked at everything else. That's all good. Okay. And we're going to get our big fight next turn. Usually there are a couple of units that come over here and try to defend this. So we'll see if they pop over there. But yeah, so I'm not entirely sure what the correct path is. I think it's really cool that there are so many different choices, and I really like that they're bringing back the min-max with this mod, Steel Faith. Damn, it's already been 45 minutes. Jeez. Okay, well, I promise you we'll get this really good fight in here, and I'll see if I can get one more also. Usually I try to keep my episodes to about 45 minutes to an hour, but this first one, because there are so many different mechanics, and because this faction functions so differently from every other faction, I just wanted to explain a lot early on. But I promise you, in future episodes, there will be a lot of fighting. A lot of fighting. Because you don't have to manage cities. You don't manage diplomacy. It's just straight up, you just run at people and fight. And you're not going to have a bunch of armies. You know, at least not early on, because you can't afford them. That was a strategy in the base game, too, is when you multi-sack all those towns, you could actually get multiple lords and power level them up early on. You can't really do that because you can't afford it. Okay, so united they stand. Rumors are false. So I want the Empire to be able to fight each other. I don't know why it's not letting us do, like, why it hasn't asked us about the cap system yet. But presumably it will here in a little bit. Okay, so this is going to be a pretty good little fight. They have 9, 10, and then Volksgrad has 11, 12, 13, 14. So they could have up to 15 units here. That's our 13. Okay, so we're going to try to attack this dude on the outside. He'll probably run away, we'll see. Oh, he's actually going to stand his ground. Usually he runs. Okay, so we're attacking him because that's going to force reinforcements to come in. And that will give us more time to get up close to them before they can really set their feet. They do have a couple of crossbowmen. But I think we can deal with them. We just have to try to keep the Chaos spawn out of the spears, if we can. Other than that, it should be all good. Okay, let's just fight it. They probably fought me because I didn't hire 2 extra Marauders. The other 2 times that I tried it, I hired Marauders. I think they're probably going to come in behind him, but if they come in from the side, we could potentially pick them off as they come in. Okay, so they're kind of coming in from the side over here. So we should be able to get over there before they really have a chance to set their feet and get set up. They didn't have any large units, I don't believe, that we were going to be able to get a hold of. I think we'll just put them in here. We'll put the Chosen in the middle.
Every mortal.
There we go. That's fine. Actually, let's... Oops, no. There. Spread that out just a little bit there, just so we have our power in the middle. So we can kind of tear a hole through the middle. Use the dogs to flank. We'll gamble. So you can have up to... oh, I guess the starting limit is 35. I thought it was 50. Okay, so we should not have gambled on that, but it's fine. Okay, so we're just going to try to immediately get some shots in here. Maybe the archers won't start next to us. Okay, right there, right there. We want those pistols.
Archaon!
Close are we?
Marauder horseman! Charge them! Mortal foe! Ruinous powers! My blade hungers!
Here, there's some, yeah, there's some spears there.
For chaos!
Okay, so they are kind of, we're breaking them up a little bit here.
All will be despoiled! Horde! Chaos Marauders! Time to destroy! Master of Blades hunger! Kill them all! For chaos! Marauder horseman! Get them!
Okay, so we did kind of catch him at sort of an awkward angle here. Okay, see if I can get him to line up here in a perfect little line. Okay, this is going to be glorious. Actually, step back a little bit here. Because you can't fire it if you're too close. Ah, yes.
Bring us to Cardiff! Take it, Southerner! Six many glories! Charge them! Corn demands!
We're about ready for one more.
Deliver slaughter! Archaon! Charge them! Swords
Come on,
of
boy.
chaos to me! Arcane might to me! Yeah! Kill the Southerners! Give us ruin!
There we go. That's that mass route we're looking for.
Chaos warriors!
It also lowers their leadership by 8 whenever that comes through.
Many glories! For the Blood God! What? What? So be it!
Actually, let's go run all these down before they.
That's what the Masters bid! The gods demanded! Leave your command! Your will! My gods call! Pass up! Marauder horseman!
Whatever, you just have Archaon chase them around. It's fine.
Attack the martyrs! Now is our time! Kill, maim, burn! Give us glory! Read this! Running! Charge! Quick! Do not scatter! Chosen!
Just run, I guess, over here. They're just trying to pick off my hound.
For the Blood God! Get them!
Just like completely ignored their lords, basically.
For the Chaos Gods! What? Time to destroy! Chosen! Deliver slaughter! Now is our time! Ah! We want their eyes!
Yeah, your big, your monster dudes can go berserk though, which is kind of annoying. They do a lot of area of effect damage, but they can also freak out on you. Okay, so most of these guys should not be able to run.
Eat your souls!
Dogs on them. So that's what I'm talking about. Some of these fights, like, we won this one, but we definitely took some casualties on it.
Bring us to carnage! Johnson! Chosen!
Everybody did pretty well on the damage end. You see, like, this guy did 213 kills. He didn't even lose a single unit, I'm pretty sure. Yeah, it's normally 12. So they're injured, but not a single, like, entity fell. So these are very strong. I really like the Chaos Spawn. And they're just gross looking. These are the kind of monsters that I think Hudson was looking for here. I mean, look at these things. These things are nasty. I couldn't always zoom in that much in that fight, because I was kind of... Some of these early fights are kind of wacky. But yeah, those things are just, like, disgusting. They do, like, huge damage, have big regeneration. Okay, we killed the Lord. Everyone else should die, I think. Get over here. I'm gonna kill as many as we can. We got them all. Dimitri is actually their legendary lord, I'm pretty sure.
Do not meddle in my destiny! Die in arcane fire!
I don't think we'll be able to kill him. I mean, it's possible. Maybe we can tie him up and kill him. I think you have a better chance of getting a magical item if you do. Okay, yeah, I guess we have him wrapped up. Get the big boys over here on him. You also want to try to get decisive victory if you can. Say, look, Archaon killed 340. Most of that is because of Burning Head. Like, Kolick is cool early on, but he's not killing 340 like that. Archaon has some really nice skills when you level him up too, which we haven't really gone into that much because I already was talking a lot in this episode, but he has some really nice stuff once you start getting around level 20. He has this big, like, map-wide buff. He allows you to hire extra specialty units. And he gives you this big buff. Good kitty. Yeah. I forgot exactly what it is. It like debuffs the enemy. I think it like debuffs their leadership and some other stuff on the map when you get to level 20. So he has some pretty nice stuff overall. But it's mostly like the biggest thing early on is just that he has Burning Head. And I think that's just huge. 3,300 Mark of Corn. 8 extra melee attack, 12% weapon damage. Okay, I think I want that on Chaos Spawn. I either want it on the Chaos Spawn or the Chosen. I might actually put it on Chosen. Because we're going to be climbing up some walls here in a little bit. Okay, so we could take 112 captives, or we can do this for 8% weapon strength for 5 turns. I think we do the 8% weapon strength.
Spirits of Morka.
Yeah, we still get the replenishment even when we're not in replenishment stance or whatever.
Not likely.
Nice. Oh, we didn't get to, okay. Oh, that's actually 2 fights then. That's actually really nice that he didn't run. I'm so used to him running. So that means we're probably going to get to level up twice off of this, which is really handy. Okay, so we probably want Hearts of Iron here. And then we want to end up going for... Maybe we want to go for Dominating Presence and then get... extra armor and melee defense for Marauders. It's also for Forsaken, which we're definitely going to be getting a lot of. We get to tier 3, at least that's the plan. That's for Chosen and Chaos Spawn, which we already have a couple of those. And we could just get a bunch of Chaos Spawn instead of Forsaken. It's possible, although Chaos Spawn are weak to spears, and Forsaken are very good against spears. But we do need the growth, or we're just never going to be able to get to the Chaos Spawn in the first place. So I think we have to go Root Marcher and then growth. So let's just do Hearts of Iron first. Yeah, the bigger loss is just a big, big deal. So we're going to go with that, and then Root Marcher.
There'll be a reckoning.
Nice. Oh, we get 2 victories because he didn't run. Some indirect cheese, yeah. I honestly thought he was going to run every other time he's run. It's because I didn't hire 2 extra Marauders. But the Marauders really don't do crap. They're just kind of fodder. Okay, so this is where we get to choose if we want 20% post-battle loot, or if we want campaign movement. You can stack all of these too, eventually. Or do we want 25% research rate? I think we want the money first. We're going to get a lot of loot off of our next one. I'm not sure. Because we aren't researching... Are we researching Nurgle yet? I thought we were going to do it next turn, maybe. Well, we'll just do it this way. We'll do the post-battle loot first. I think money is definitely the biggest deal. Magical missile. Okay, so that's pretty bad. Okay, so we could have actually done it this turn, the Nurgle. Okay, well, we'll do it next turn though. Potion to the Plague Lord. Okay, so we can't move because we just raised, but we can do. I guess we can do summoning. So I didn't realize that when I was doing that before. Whenever you raise, you can still change stance into summoning. There's no point in raiding because you just killed the building. And we still get extra replenishment. That's pretty sweet. Yeah, the replenishment's definitely the right call. If you get it even when you're not in Horde stance. Okay, so... Tribes of Chaos. Did get Hearts of Iron there. Okay. Yeah, we're at 103. Kind of want to do one more fight for you here, just because it's first episode and I did talk a lot. So we'll see if we can get one more fight, see if we can go knock out Prague here. Now, sieges are kind of tricky. I tried it just running in and busting down the door, because some of your units do have door breaker. I tried that with Kolic, I think, too. It takes way too long. You got to have either a battering ram or preferably the thing where you can get up on the rafters. That's really the best one. It takes 2 turns to do that, though. So that's kind of iffy, but we need to not take a lot of casualties. Although, with this buff, this 20% buff, we do regenerate while we're sieging. So that's not as much of a waste as it was before. So they just hired a new lord there. So watch, he's going to be rank 7. I'm pretty sure they could have run him in from somewhere else, but... Okay, here it is. This is where they ask you, the capacity system. So we're doing only faction-wide caps. With a lot of other campaigns, I've done army caps too, but Chaos is already hard enough, and you have such a difficulty getting a diversity of units. that I'm just going to do it with faction-wide caps. I think that's reasonable. It's already pretty rough, even with that, so...
I'll have this world.
Okay.
Sigma.
Yep, level 7. Although he doesn't have points in there yet, for whatever reason. Maybe he's going to do it next turn, I don't know. But anyways, okay, so we're going to do channeling so that I get more magic. 11 turns on that.
Destroyers, come. Yes, bring corruption.
Now, you might say, like, you can go along the south as well.
Chaos.
So it takes 6 for this, and we have 5, which is really troll. I think I don't want to wait around that many turns, so maybe we just go for a battering ram. It does take longer with the battering ram route, but I think we can probably still handle it. Like, these Chosen should light them up. We put the Chosen on the front lines, and then we can just burn them out. So, yeah, I just don't want to take a bunch of extra turns. Okay. Continue siege. Are we still replenishing? We are still replenishing, yes. Okay. Anything extra going on here? Nope. Wow, it's still 14 turns? What? I guess we got a little bit of extra, because we're supposed to get 25% research last turn, but I don't know how it comes up with that, but all right, we'll do one more fight. This is going to be a long episode. I don't know. Maybe I should cut it off before this siege and just start the next episode on the siege. I guess I'll do that because, you know, this is going to be like an hour and 30-minute episode, and I don't want to scare people off too much that might be looking around for a campaign. So I guess we'll start it off next episode. So just stay tuned for the next one. We'll start off with the siege. It'll be fun. So sorry I talked a lot in that first one. There's just so many like weird things that are not weird, but just different that are really cool about this campaign. It's very different from vanilla, like the different gods, and there's all sorts of min-maxing. Like, there's nothing that's just a straight-up buff for the most. Like, there's some, you know, that buff that I got for the constant replenishment rate. But a lot of your choices in those technologies and which gods you choose and all this, there are, like, good things to it and bad things to it. So you really have to decide what do you want to do. Okay, yeah, sure, we'll let the Beastmen come in. What makes the game easier if we play Chaos or Beastmen? Maybe not then. I'll say no. I don't want to make the game easier. It does make it a lot harder with other factions, but...
I refuse.
Okay. Anyways, we'll start off next time with this siege, and then we'll see where we go next. Kislev is difficult to siege because they have a 15-stat garrison, but if we win this clean, we might be able to go mess with Fort Ostrosk. Garrisons are also much stronger in Steel Faith Overall mod, which makes it a lot more challenging than the base game, where the garrisons are a lot weaker. But anyways, I do think this is a better pathing, probably, than trying to go and fight the dwarves. Like, it's really, really difficult to beat the dwarves early on because they have really good defensive units with a lot of armor, and they're just going to be able to beat up a lot of your marauders really easily. Like, when you get the marauders with armor piercing, they're better against dwarves, but you really need more, like, multiple chaos spawn, Forsaken, like, a lot of that type of stuff. Sadie, quit trying to walk on that. To really carve through those dwarves. I think humans are a lot easier to beat. And ultimately, we want to make our way down to Midland as well, so we can get that Chaos Fortress. So I think starting off here is probably good, although you can go and try to beat these dudes and then work your way through Crocodrock, but I think if you can come out here and start taking down Kislev,
Not
then
likely.
it's going to be a lot better for you. But anyways, that's going to be it. Thank you all very much. Hopefully you enjoyed this. If you did, be sure to like and subscribe. It helps out a ton. It's free. It's easy. It just takes a couple of clicks. If you'd like to commission and sponsor a campaign yourself, just email me at thestratchprofessor@gmail.com. We can set that up. Check out the rest of the content on the channel, and I'll see you next time. Have a great day.